So this is a standard match with the Bug mid-range deck that we went over in Homebrew Wednesday. It is basically the same with the exchange of 4 cards. That would be the addition of 3 Thragtusk and extra Corpsejack Menace because of its synergy, and the removal of the 2 Rewinds and the 1 Desecration Demon and 1 Primordial Hydra because I didn't feel like I needed all 4 Desecration Demons, and I did not need the 3 or all 4 Primordial Hydras because they were a little slow. So this opening hand I thought would be fine because even though I only have 2 lands and only one of them produces color, I was able to Farseek on turn 2, and I had 2 pieces of removal to keep myself fine. So I was hoping to go from there. My opponent is playing American Flyers, an aggro deck, capitalizing on low costing flyers. So we are basically going to Farseek on this turn, and we're going to look for another land, one that can produce black that we needed. And I believe we end up getting a Watery Grave so that we can cast our Dissipate on turn 3 if needed. Or turn 4, or our next turn. So at this point I'm feeling pretty good. I got 2 pieces of removal in the Dissipate and the Corpsejack Menace. Both of them will be castable if I draw another land. And he is going to play Sulphur Falls, and he ends up casting a War Falcon on this turn. Yep. Causing the Cloudfin Raptor to evolve, and he's going to get me for 1 piece of damage. From this point I take my turn, get the 4th land drop, and decide to leave up my Dissipate mana in fear of a Geist of Saint Shaft. So I hopefully made the right choice. He seems to have the 3rd land drop, and we're looking for the Geist of Saint Shaft to be landed, which we can Dissipate and would feel pretty good at this point. Instead, he chooses to cast a Sky Knight Legionnaire, which is not the end of the world because he has nothing to detain, and we have the Abrupt Decay to take care of it. So we let that resolve. We made the misplay of not Abrupt Decaying the Sky Knight Legionnaire before he could swing with the War Falcon, but it's okay because we only had 1 black source of mana anyways, so we're just going to ultimate price the Cloudfin Raptor instead. We're going to drop to 17 life, but we're still in a pretty stable position. Alright, so I'm feeling good, like I can gain life off the Thragtusk if I draw another land, and I'm still fearing the Geist of Saint Shaft being dropped, and I don't have removal for it, so I'm going to leave up the Dissipate mana, and if I don't need it, I'm going to Abrupt Decay his Sky Knight Legionnaire. So we're going to let the 5 damage come through here. Before he goes to combat, he decides to cast another Cloudfin Raptor, so I feel pretty good about casting Abrupt Decay because I'm not worried about Geist of Saint Shaft for thinking that he would have played a land drop. However, he counters my Abrupt Decay with his own Boros Charm, making his creatures indestructible. So I'm stuck taking 5 damage, but at least he won't be able to cast his Geist of Saint Shaft. However, he does end up having another land drop that he played second main phase, so if he happened to have a Geist of St. Traft in his hand, that could have been a misplay. So I'm really stuck on 4 lands and I need another land drop. I'm gonna cast the Corpsejack Menace because I don't really care about the Geist of St. Traft anymore. I need to start making my own board state. And overall, this just hasn't been going very well. This deck doesn't really want to be playing a control game. It kind of wants to ramp, curve into his creatures, and bang them out pretty fast. So he's now going to go to his turn. Ideally, I only take 5 damage here, which happens to be the case, dropping me down to 7. We're not in a good place, but the Thragtusk will at least counteract that if I top deck a land here, which I do. So I'm going to go into the Thragtusk, and I still have the Primordial Hydra if I can somehow manage to reclaim board state. I go to swing, but unfortunately he had a feeling of dread when I entered combat, so I get tapped by that. And so I go to second main phase and play my Thragtusk, and I will at least be back up to 12 life. I'm trying to stay out of the range of Boros Charm. We're playing this game on Cockatrice again because Meadow Brick Magic is a huge fan of Cockatrice and not spending money on Magic Online. Stuck taking 5 damage again, dropping down to 7 life. This game helped me realize that I kind of have a problem with flyers because I don't really have anything to reach, but I do have, and we'll get to the sideboard when we go to sideboard, some things to help take care of that. So I kind of really needed a 6 land here because then I get feeling of dreaded again. But I needed the 6 land so that I could leave up Dissipate Mana and play my Tribute to Hunger, try and limit how much I'm bleeding out here. I unfortunately don't get that, and I know I wouldn't have had a 6 land anyways because, well, I drew the Tribute to Hunger, so that play would have been pointless anyways. But I'm leaving up the Tribute to Hunger to try and get as much health, either by killing their creature, by the combination of killing their creatures and the 1 toughness I will gain off the sacrifice. He pretty much seals the deal by playing this Daring Sky Jack. And from there, I'm going to end up losing this game on the next turn, and we're going to go to sideboarding. It takes time with this decision, but it doesn't really matter. In the end, we end up losing, which is unfortunate. I mean, we'd have to pretty much, we're going to end up taking 3 damage, go down to 4 life. We would have had to have top deck. An Abrupt Decay would have saved us 3 life, and he couldn't have attacked in the air. But it doesn't really matter. There's not much that we could top deck to help us out. A Thragtusk would have helped. And That's pretty much it. I play it out, but it's not really much of a point. I don't really know what I was getting at here. I kind of knew I was going to lose. I was, I guess, hoping to sucker him into a block on the Skyjack. I don't really know. Yeah, there we go. I concede. Alright. Alright, so in the sideboard we have a Pithing Needle, 2 Vampire Nighthawks, Deathrite Shaman, Acidic Slime, Triumph of Cruelty, Tragic Slips, Essence Scatter, Rewind, and Duress. Basically, our Vampire Nighthawks are for aggro, so is our Tragic Slip. Essence Scatter as well. Pithing Needle is basically for planeswalkers and other control kind of matchups or combo matchups with like Door to Nothingness. Deathrite Shaman gets your graveyard effects. Acidic Slime comes in to just kill anything and destroy anything it needs to, which is not the case in this matchup. Triumph of Cruelty does wonders against control, specifically Esper control. I mean, if you don't have the largest creature on the battlefield, you're probably going to lose anyways. So we end up sideboarding out a Dissipate for an Essence Scatter and the 2 Bioshifts because they don't really do anything and the Primordial Hydra aren't that useful. And we put in our Tragic Slips, the Essence Scatter, and the 2 Vampire Nighthawks. So this initial hand looks okay. We got a bunch of removal. I probably should have mulliganed, but I decided to keep it because the removal looks good and the Watery Grave activates all our M13 and Innistrad lands. He starts off aggressively with a War Falcon, which got me kind of worried. Alright. I'll just pass the turn after the Hinterland Harbors because I'm not really worried about the War Falcon until he gets something else down. I'd rather Tragic Slip that instead of the War Falcon. And we miss our land drop. Now we have 2 Desecration Demons, so we're feeling good once we get to some land. Unfortunately, we have no land at this point, so we're pretty much at the mercy of the top deck. He's got his Sky Knight Legionnaire, and before he enters combat, we Tragic Slip that so the War Falcon can't get at us, so we're doing okay for now. We're behind a little bit by land, but as long as we get a decent top deck here, which is an Abrupt Decay, which at least is something we can play. However, I'd much rather seen land. Would have opened up our Dissipate, and we would have had a tribute to Hunger's activated. So at this point, I'm really worried about a Geist of St. Trapped coming down. At least I could Abrupt Decay the War Falcon and then hope to tribute to Hunger on the next turn. Luckily, he just passes the turn, though, so we get a chance to draw again. And we get a Woodland Cemetery, which is pretty nice. I just passed the turn instead of playing the Dreg Mangler because I'm not really terribly concerned about beating him in at this point as much as I am worried about, say, a Geist of Saint Trapped or something. And so here I make a bit of a misplay by dissipating the Restoration Angel. I probably should have let it resolve and then just Abrupt Decayed the War Falcon, taking the 3 damage from the Restoration Angel and Tribute to Hunger it later for the 4 life, and I would have ended up gaining a life off of that, and then I would have been able to leave the Dissipate mana open for, say, Geist of Saint Traff if he did have one. So I don't think dissipating that Restoration Angel there was a wise play, and I kind of knew it at the time, so I don't really know why I did that. I got worried when that 5th land came down and he took a while tapping it because I thought that a Thundermaw Hellkite was going to hit me, and I was like, I deserve that for using up that Dissipate. I decided to play the Desecration Demon here because it'll give us some board state, and he's going to be forced to sacrifice that War Falcon eventually because it's not doing anything for him. And at this point, I'm not worried as much about Geist of St. Trath because Desecration Demon's a pretty good answer to that. And we still have 2 Tributes to Hungers and Abrupt Decay in hand. This has been a slow start for both of us. He seemed to flooded and I seemed to drought, so it wasn't a very exciting game. However, the 3rd game, yes, we do go to a 3rd game. We end up winning this game. Is much more exciting. So should be fun. There's a little bit of lack of excitement in my voice because this is the 3rd time I'm watching this match. And this game's relatively slow, and we got kind of curb stomped in the 1st game, but 3rd game's where it's at, so stick around for that. Luckily, we don't really see anything played here. Again, he's just moving really slowly. I have no idea what's in his hand. I'm assuming Feelings of Dreads and just other control spells that he just isn't getting a chance to use. Start combat, and we get Feeling of Dreaded here. I kind of saw that coming. He takes forever casting it. I have no idea why. I think he was probably deciding between casting the Feeling of Dread now or just sacrificing the War Falcon that does nothing, but I don't think he wanted to let the Desecration Demon get any bigger. I decided to play the Desecration Demon here because I don't feel like he has board wipes in his deck as American Flyers, and I feel pretty safe having it, and I'm just going to put a pretty fast clock on him. And we get Restoration Angel, which I'm not, again, terribly worried about because my Flyers are bigger and they're stronger, and he's got to sack them to keep them from getting through. So he has the decision of whether or not to sacrifice his War Falcon and tap my Desecration Demon to get in that 3 damage, and I don't really think it's worth it, and he ends up choosing against that decision, which I think is a pretty wise decision on his part. I mean, I have no idea really why he would do that, but he kind of sat there for a while thinking, so I was wondering if he was thinking about that. It'd be kind of silly. Leave him pretty open. He would take 13 damage for the next round. Yeah, he's sitting there. I don't know. Maybe I want to do that. No, you don't. Cloudfront Raptor is not a threat at this point. I think he started off with 2 Restoration Angels and was pretty scared of the Dissipates, especially after I got the first one. I don't really know why he had such a slow start. The Vampire Nighthawk, though, that we just top deck's pretty good against his Flyers. And again, I'm not really worried about board wipes, so I see no reason for tapping or for not playing it at this point. I mean, he Feeling of Dreads the 2 Desecration Demons, but we saw that coming. It was in the yard. So we lay out the Vampire Nighthawk and leave open mana for the Abrupt Decay if we happen to need it. At the end of the turn, after his turn, he ends up playing nothing, and I Abrupt Decay one of his guys, and then next turn I Tribute to Hunger, I think. Maybe not. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. But I think I end up Tribute to Hungering to get rid of something else, then Tribute to Hunger again to get rid of his Restoration Angel, leaving me free to swing in. I have no idea what he's thinking about at this point. It's not like he's going to sack anything to get in there. I'm looking into his yard to see if he's got anything else. If he's only played one Feeling of Dread, and then he has, and so I'm wondering if he's got another Feeling of Dread saved up in there. So, oh, nope, I don't Abrupt Decay. I'll wait out a turn. Play the Overgrown Tomb to play tapped. This. So I attack with just the 2 Desecration Demons neat. That's a lot of flying demons to the face. Chooses to block one with the Cloudfin Raptor, and the other one I believe gets Azorius Charmed. Yup. Which again isn't the end of the world. I mean, it sets me back a turn, but drawing into a Desecration Demon with our mana set's not bad. And we lose that Cloudfin Raptor, so kudos to us. Not really. I mean, we just have a pretty stable board state, and he's not got much going on. So this is the turn where I decide to take advantage of him only having 2 creatures, and I Abrupt Decay his War Falcon. And then follow up with a Tribute to Hunger for his Restoration Angel, leaving him empty and giving me 4 life. I really don't know if those 2 pieces of removal were worth it. I should have probably held on to the Abrupt Decay in case I needed it for like a Detention Spear or something. And the Tribute to Hunger, gaining the 4 life off the Restoration Angel, wasn't that much. The Desecration Demons would have taken care of it in time, but I got antsy, and that's probably a misplay on my part. So, pass the turn to him. I have to admit, the more I play with this deck, the more that I realize that the Dreg Mangler kind of just sits in my hand, and I haven't gotten any use out of it. But it has helped in a few aggro matchups. That's something I didn't see coming. Bonfire of the Damned for 3. It's not a big deal. The Vampire Nighthawk's not really that useful at this point, because we have 1 Desecration Demon on field, and we're about to get another. We know we're going to get another, and the 3 life is not really that relevant. We're at 21, so he's kind of in trouble at this point. So, starting combat, before playing my Desecration Demon, I almost misplayed and played it in first main phase in case I get Feeling Dreaded, even though he's tapped out. I don't know why I would have worried about that, but I did for some reason. Again, I'm not really, I stopped to think because I saw the Bonfire of the Damned, but I realized he's got no real board wipes that can reach the power of a 6 butt, so I feel pretty safe about throwing out my Desecration Demon. So I'm pretty sure he's out of steam here. He's got nothing left, or he might have a Feeling of Dread in hand. But we'll see. And then I get pretty surprised by a drop of 2 creatures in hand with only 2 cards left in hand. Didn't really see those coming. Didn't know where they were from, but okay then. So pretty much going to swing in with all I got here. Throw the Dreg Mangler down. I don't really mind trading with anything if it means I get flying damage in. Start combat. I'm expecting him to sacrifice the guy without flying, the daring Skyjack, to one of the Desecration Demons to tap it down for a turn, but he chooses not to, so that he can trade with my Dreg Mangler, which is fine because I get the counters to put on something the next turn, and he loses his Sky Knight and he has an open board next turn. So, feeling pretty good at this point. I still have the Tribute to Hunger to kill basically whatever he plays next turn to leave an open board. He's got 0 cards in hand, so he needs a top deck. Pretty bad, a pretty awesome top deck, and he doesn't get it. So, he plays the island, he concedes the game. We go to game 3. And this is where the deck plays exactly how we want it to play. Oh, he concedes before me. Go to the sideboard. I'm pretty happy with how we sideboarded. So, I mean, we got nothing really we need to throw in. He's working with his sideboard a little, so looking around, pretty much going over. At this point, I was explaining the other cards that I chose not to sideboard in, but I explained them earlier. Yeah, so again, I don't really know how I feel about Primordial Hydras. I haven't really gotten it to work, and Corpsejack Menace seems to be pretty nice, but again, the more Corpsejack Menaces I add in with taking out Primordial Hydras, I mean, kind of the reason Corpsejack Menace is so nice, even though it works with Prime Speaker, is that Primordial Hydra also gets nice off of it, but I just feel like Primordial Hydra is a little slow. And again, Dreg Mangler hasn't really done anything for the deck. He's taking a bit of time to sideboard. If you don't know about the site Cockatrice, you should totally use it if you don't have the money to pay for Magic Online. It's got a pretty good community. Alright, game 3. So I open up this hand and I get pretty excited. I see Watery Grave to activate my Hinterland Harbor and Drowned Catacomb, 2 Farseeks and a Thragtusk. Thragtusk is exactly what we want to play against his deck because of the life gain is super relevant. His aggro matchup. Pretty much, we're going to Farseek on turn 2. We're going to be able to play a Desecration Demon on turn 3 and mess with his board state and his flyers pretty bad. Thragtusk on turn 5. Or turn 4, I should say. And we are going to curve out perfectly, and then we won't even need to use our other Farseek until after that. So I'm pretty excited with this hand. And we draw Hinterland Harbor, so we definitely don't need to Farseek the second Farseek anytime soon. So I couldn't be happier with how this deck's about to roll, especially in this matchup. And this is where it gets exciting. He's only got 2 of his 3 colors, and he's got no turn 2 play. Unfortunately, this match isn't very interactive or exciting, but this is a really good example of how explosive this deck can be. And we just drew in our Prime Speaker, and that's exactly what we want, because now we can go pretty much turn 3 Desecration Demon, turn 4 Thragtusk, turn 5 Prime Speaker, and we're going to draw between 6 or 7 cards unless he manages to remove both the Desecration Demon and the Thragtusk. So he plays a Slayer Stronghold, which is I hadn't seen before yet, but He passes, leaving open 3 mana, so I get kind of worried about Dissipate, but I'd rather lose the Desecration Demon than the Thragtusk or the Prime Speaker to it, and so I'm going to drop the Desecration Demon. If we lose it to Dissipate. And we have the Reliquary Tower, too, which is exciting, because that's the whole reason that card's in this deck, is to make Prime Speakers, draws, none of them are wasted or discarded. So, like, this is literally the ideal hand right now. Pacifism was something I wasn't expecting. However, it's not the end of the world having the Desecration Demon unable to attack or block, because it still has 6 power floating on the board for Prime Speaker. And I'm still going to have a Thragtusk. And I'm pretty sure that because Desecration Demon's going to stick around, I have nothing to worry about Prime Speaker resolving with enough counters on it. So we throw down Thragtusk, and we drew another Thragtusk, so we have this board pretty much locked down. We hit 25 life. I'm feeling fairly confident good about this game. Alright, Sky Knight Legionnaire is not the end of the world. 3-1 flyer. I don't really care about the damage. Obtaining Thragtusk is just stalling the inevitable. So, we are playing the Reliquary Tower and hitting Prime Speaker Zanga. And we are drawing 7 cards. I accidentally set the counters to 5 after sit there and add another counter. Power and toughness 7/7. 6 mana for 7 cards and 7/7 body is a pretty good day. And not having to discard any of them, so we can pass the turn with 10 cards in hand. Yeah, this is right where you want to be on turn 5. And we have a ton of answers, but we don't really get to play any of them because we're gonna beat them in the face. We have the Abrupt Decay to deal with the pacifism too, which is awesome. "22 life's no big deal, especially with another Thragtusk in hand. I make a bit of a misplay and choose to attack with Thragtusk and Prime Speaker instead of getting the Abrupt Decay off the Desecration Demon before I attack with that too. I don't know why, but instead I choose to play Thragtusk and a Farseek instead of playing Thragtusk and the Abrupt Decay on that enchantment. I think I was saving the Abrupt Decay in case a Detention Spear or something came out that actually exiled one of my creatures, because ideally she would exile Prime Speaker and then I would Abrupt Decay the Detention Spear and get Prime Speaker back and a ton more cards. At that point I just grabbed the first land I could because it doesn't really matter. And he pretty much concedes here because he has a very red hand.